Right. I'm off to deal with the fate of the planet. Be gentle with them.
Oh, you know me, Mark. Kid gloves, but made from real kids.
You know, in the German subway, there are always kind of like little monitors that show you upcoming films, and one of those were Anora, and somehow the trailer, the little footage grabbed me to actually go out and see this film, and it was a great decision by me because Anora, directed by Sean Baker, is a deceivingly good film. What starts as an erotic, almost exploitative rom-com takes a sharp turn in the second half, transforming into a deeply, darkly comedic wild goose chase. Let's just say this is not a movie you would want to watch with your parents around. What initially drew me to the film was the film's lead, Mikey Madison, who's absolutely skyrocketing right now in Hollywood, and she owns the character of Anora, Annie, or Annie as she calls herself. We've seen this character type before, but what makes Anora stand out is how it plays with the three-faced nature of the titular character. First, there's Annie at work, the performer, effortlessly charming and manipulating men for money. Then there's Annie behind closed doors, drained from the constant cycle of dancing, sex, drugs, and late nights. And finally, there's Annie the dreamer, the idealistic version of herself, who dreams of a better life and is ironically the most selfish. As for the story, here's like the setup. An erotic dancer gets the chance to escape her life when she meets a young oligarch's son and marries him in Las Vegas. But when his powerful parents find out, they're not too happy and chaos ensues. Annie and Ivan's relationship is at the center of the story, so to speak, but it's also doomed from the start. Yet, as when I watched the film, I had this lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, it could work. Because honestly, they make a cute couple, but cute isn't enough for a functional relationship. Annie is a dancer who spent her life controlling men through smiles and seduction. She's into Ivan, sure, but more for what he represents than who he actually is, and what Ivan represents is a way out of the life that she's currently living. That is not to say that Ivan is some innocent victim. Far from it. He's a rich kid with too much money and zero responsibility. And his naivety is also quite charming for us, the audience, but this gets deconstructed towards the end, where we see that his naivety is actually just cowardice, because to him, Annie and the marriage are just another thrill, a game without consequences. But when those consequences hit, he does what most do in this situation. He literally runs into his mom's arms and begs for her to solve this whole thing. Now, I often complain about a film having two tones or clashing tones, but here it works, honestly, because there's a clear setup with the first half and where tone is established, and then the second half kind of deconstructs its first half and establishing a new tone that is not in contrast but underlying to the first half of the film. And by that I mean is that for the first half, where we get to see Annie and Ivan partying and growing closer and making this relationship until the marriage, it's vibrant, it's chaotic, it's almost like 13, if you remember that film. It's fast, fun, and drenched in warm neon colors, capturing just the reckless youth of Annie, Ivan, and Ivan's crew. And then we get to the second half, which slows down, swapping the bright lights for the cold winter streets of New York. The fun now comes from the darkly absurd clash between Annie and the people working for Ivan's family. That is not to say that there aren't any lights or anything, it's just a colder version of light, you know, or how the light is captured on film is and feels colder. Now, I won't spoil what happens for mostly towards the ending of the film, but let's just say yes, the marriage is annulled. And this leads then to the final scene, which I want to talk about, which is quite haunting and one of the best endings I feel, and the only proper ending for this film. We see Annie at the lowest point now in her life, with the knowledge that Ivan is not the ticket out of her misery, and she desperately tries to regain control over her life the only way she knows how, and that is by using her sexuality. And she turns to the one man she's been at odds with the entire film. It is perhaps the most intimate scene of the film, despite featuring no nudity at all, unlike all the other sex scenes that happened prior. And after that intimacy folds, this guy just holds her as she breaks down. The credits roll, shutting us out, no more voyeuristic access to her life. These are my favorite kind of endings, the ones that feel like we're just passing through a real person's life, not watching a neatly wrapped up story. Because in our life, how many people do we meet for a couple of years that stay with us, teach us, and then they're off and have new experiences and forget us, and we just had a glimpse into their lives and they had a glimpse into our lives, and it's good, you know. And then it doesn't really end. There's no clear beginning, middle, and end. I think that's always kind of an important message to tell the audience. But luckily, not every film is like that, because if every film just ended open, it would also make a really boring experience. Let's get to my final thoughts. Overall, Anora is a solid 8 out of 10. The acting and visual style are top notch. It feels like a darker, more cynical take on Pretty Woman, and that is overall great. That said, not everything lands. The shouting matches sparse throughout the film can get grating, and I mean not in a good way that builds tension, but more in a way that's annoying and where you're like, oh, I'm gonna take a toilet break or skip forwards if you're watching this at home. There are also some story beats that play out exactly as you would expect them to be. And lastly, the dark comedy doesn't always hit. Now, normally this should be like a 7 out of 10 then, but because everything else works so well, the acting and the visual identity in just the overall style, this is still an 8 out of 10 for me. It's a wide gripping ride, and it sticks with you, because I watched this film like 2 weeks ago or so, and I still had to get a clear idea on how to write this script. And I still can remember everything about the film, almost. Yeah, but that's gonna be my video for Sunday. Let me know what you think of the film, if you have watched it, or if you're more likely to watch it now after I told you what I think. All this in the comments. Subscribe, and we see us in the next video.
Now get the fuck out of my driveway.